Hi everyone. Hello. Just waiting to give everyone a chance. Like I said last week, I'm going to be kind of like the time on my lives are going to be a little bit different, probably week to week, because we have lots of stuff going on. And but I'm happy and excited to be here with you today to begin to talk to you about the Lwa known as Kouzen Zaka or Azaka. And he's a really important spirit in the work, in the spiritual work. And he's known in the 21 divisions in Haitian Vodou and in Sanse. I want to speak about this Lwa, who's a very hardworking Lwa, and is a Lwa who is very important for anyone who is involved in doing spiritual work for other people. Hi, Tyrone. I welcome all of you here to the live. I think we're going to do a little bit of talking about Kouzen and then maybe do a little bit of, answering some questions as we do here on the lives. And I want to just give everybody a chance to come on in. Like I said last week, I've been changing up the times of the lives every week just because we have a lot of rituals, a lot of ceremonies going on, and a lot of other work that we've been busy doing. We're in the midst of preparing for a big workshop we're going to do. We're going to be doing a workshop as well as a ceremony for which only initiates are going to be coming up shortly. And we might be planning something for Kouzen. Hi, May May. Hope you're doing well. So, today I want to talk about Kouzen. And Kouzen is a really major Lwa. So if you're a spiritual worker, if you're somebody who works with the Lwa and you work for others, there's certain Lwa that may not be in your court, but especially like if you're a Hungan, if you're a Mambo, if you're a priest, you're a priestess, you're a spiritual worker, these Lwa are still significant to you and significant in the work that you do for others. Kouzen Zaka or Azaka has many different dimensions, let's call it. So there's different Kouzens that exist. Hi G, hi J, right? There's many different Kouzens that exist. Kouzen is a Lwa in our lineage. We were taught is basically half Taino or half Indian and half African. So he's a Lwa that mixes those two particular cultures, and he's the spirit of work. As far as saints are concerned, he's usually associated with Saint Isidore the Worker, San Isidro Labrador. And he is a very important spirit when it comes to the whole realm of work. Azaka is a farmer. He's an agriculturalist. He's a farmer. And he's a spirit that is known to be constantly at work, constantly working. One of the most important tools to him is his jakut, which is his straw bag. His straw bag is square. There's different types of straw bags. One is round and one is square. The one that goes to Kouzen is square. So Kouzen usually carries his square jakut, his straw bag, in which he usually has a pipe and some tobacco. He also carries his food in there. This bag usually has fulas hanging or mouchoirs hanging off of it. And if you're a person that does spiritual work for other people, or you have an altar in which you work with for other people, it's usually an important ingredient for you, or an important punto or point for you to have in your altar to help you in your work. Again, like I said, this is one of the major Lwa that even if you do not have him in your court, it is a Lwa that many people can approach, many people can go to, and ask for his aid or his assistance. The reason why is everyone in the world pretty much has to work. And so work is a part of everyone's life, even if this Lwa in particular does not walk with you. Hi Vicky, hope you're doing well. even if this loi does not walk with you. So a lot of the major lois are really approachable by the majority of people. That's one of the things that people don't understand about the loi is that not every loi is approachable just by everybody. Certain lois prefer to only deal with people who are initiates. Other lois are more approachable on a large scale level that many people, or they're open to many people approaching them. These tend to be some of what I call like the chief loi or the big loi that everybody knows about. Good afternoon, darling. Much love to you, Mambo J. So, Kouzen is one of those lua. And he, where I come from, he's usually celebrated in May or October. In May, he's celebrated, or October. Both of these times are important in harvest time. So May or October tend to be his months, and the day that we deal with and we work with Kouzen is on Friday. So Friday is the day that we work with Kouzen, and a lot of people don't know, but Kouzen and Gede are brothers. So there is a certain balance that happens for certain people when you have one or the other, where the other brother helps to come and balance out some energies for you. Now, if you attended our yearly ceremony for the new year, you know that Kouzen is a major loi of this year. He's a loi that has to do with planting, he has to do with harvesting, he has to do with really taking care of the land, growing things. He's also known as a loi travail or a loi de trabajo, which means he's a work spirit. He's a very hard worker, and Kouzen does not usually demand that much in return. I brought up Kouzen in the Sanse Espiritismo y la 21 División group that we have here on Facebook because I knew I'd be doing this live speaking about Kouzen today. So he's a loi that is, I feel as though, tends to be quite reasonable. One of the things that Kouzen really loves is food. Something that people don't know about Kouzen is that he will frequently eat old or rotten food. He does not like people to touch his food until he says he's done with it. One time I had an avocado. He kept that avocado for so long that when he finally got rid of it, it was simply the avocado shell, and you could hear the nut jiggling around inside the shell. So, just because something is old, moldy, or dirty, you might throw it out, but that doesn't mean that the loi you're dealing with will throw it out. This is something that you have to learn about the different loi and how they deal with their food and their offerings and things of that nature. A lot of people love good afternoon. Good afternoon, Lavetta. So a lot of people love Kouzen. I love Kouzen to death because, like I said, he's a very simple loi. You just can't mess with his food or anything that is placed in his straw bag. He's very, I don't know, possessive. Possessive is the word I want to use. He's very possessive when it comes to his things and when it comes to his food. Hey, Mambo Sandy. Kouzen is a spirit, however, that when he goes to work for you, he really is going to go to work for you, and he's going to work really, really hard to make sure that he helps you get what it is that you're asking for or what it is that you need. There's not really enough good things that I can say about Kouzen because I've worked really effectively with Kouzen many, many times, and I've had lots of success with Kouzen. He's a really powerful loi. One of the things about it with Kouzen is that there's a different Kouzen that deals within the various elements. A lot of people don't know that the four elements in Vodou is something really important. However, the way that we work with the four elements is very different than paganism or Wicca. The way we correspond them is somewhat different from paganism and Wicca. And Kouzen has there are various Kouzens that work in the various elements or have connections to all of the various elements. That's part of what makes him such a powerful Loi. Okay? Hola, hola. What part of what makes Kouzen such a powerful Loi? If you have Kouzen, okay, it's really important for you to have a Jakut. It's important for you to have a Jakut. He also wears a straw hat. That hat is known as a Panama hat. So it's important for you to have, if you have Kouzen, to have his Jakut and have a Panama hat, if at all possible, with the hat. Okay? Yeah. That's true. So one of the things about Kouzen, and if you have a really strong Kouzen, this happens with a lot of people who have a really strong Kouzen Zaka, is they don't tend to be too concerned with their looks. Okay? Someone who has a Kouzen Zaka will dress really simply. They're not too concerned with their looks, they're concerned with getting to work. A lot of Kouzen people wear work clothes everywhere. And Kouzen is a Loi that is really humble. He's a very humble Loi. He's not a flashy, dashy type of Loi. But he is a Loi of abundance. Just like the earth can give abundantly, when you have a good relationship with Kouzen, you will find yourself receiving abundantly. There are certain connections that Kouzen has that a lot of people are unaware of because he's not a Loi that, especially here in the U.S., seems to get discussed as much simply because I guess a lot of people aren't farmers. But he's not just for farmers. So there's two Loi that Kouzen has special connections and relationships with. Of course, he has Kouzen. Kouzen is his wife who goes and sells the what he's harvested out in the market. And she's the one that counts his money and keeps the books. She's kind of like also the family accountant. He doesn't concern himself too much with money as much as he does with work. Aside from her and his children, so Kouzen Zaka has a family. There's a family of spirits there within the group or the nation known as Juba. And Kouzen has two children. I'm not going to get into that. That's something that, like, if you have an initiator, that's who you need to seek that information from. If you don't have an initiator, it's not going to be something that's significant for you. So, Kouzen has two children. He has his family. But aside from those spirits, there's two other female spirits that are really important with Kouzen. And one of them is Danto. Danto and Kouzen have a tight connection and a tight relationship with each other. Danto is one of the main merchants that buys off of Kouzen wholesale. So, in order for her to go ahead and sell herself, Kouzen, a lot of what Danto sells, she buys from Kouzen and Kouzen in order to sell those things. Something that people don't discuss with Kouzen as well is that yes, he's a farmer, but part of what farmers do is that they often keep animals. So he also keeps sheep and goat and pig and cows, etc., etc. So that's a big connection that he has. Another connection that he has is with Aizan. Aizan is the spirit, the force of the marketplace, where naturally is where Kouzen's items are sold. So Kouzen has a connection with Aizan as well as with Ezili Danto. And there's a certain secret. There's certain secrets that when you have Kouzen and you are initiated, you will learn as far as if you're being taught, as far as how to specially prepare his items, as well as how to especially make sure that he has those two women by his side. In fact, there's a saying that basically he's more connected with those two women, or he kind of interacts with them very often, even more so than Kouzen. So he's connected with those two spirits, and they're really important in assisting him in making forward moves. High Moon, darling, in making his forward movement. So those two spirits. This is why certain things it's important that if you need them, you have them prepared by a hunga or a mambo who knows how to do these things. So that way, those things can be prepared for you in such a way that they're going to be their most effective working. And when it comes to Kouzen, one of the things that people receive is a punto of Kouzen or a point of Kouzen, and those things assist when it comes to people working. Someone who has a good point Kouzen or a good punto of Kouzen usually is not going to lack work. The problem sometimes can be that it can be a lot of hard work. Kouzen does not mind hard work. And you can feel overworked, and there can be a lot of work. Something that happens with people who are overly connected with Kouzen at times is that they become addicted to work. They become work addicts. And they're consumed and addicted to work. This does happen with a few other Loa. Ogun is another one that I'm reminded of right off the bat, right? Another reason why Kouzen is important is because we live here on Earth. And Kouzen essentially, okay, is a Loa connected with the Earth. So we live here on Earth. We eat from the Earth, from what the Earth gives forward, even though they have you convinced that, like, you should pay for everything. Really, the earth is the one that gives. People just have worked out a system to buy things and own things, etc., even though it belongs to the world. So that's the thing. One of the things that you can do with Kouzen, or how you can approach Kouzen, is to offer him a candle and offer him a fresh offering of fruits and vegetables, raw fruits and vegetables. He likes certain cooked foods. A lot of the foods that Kouzen like take a lot of work to get them prepared and get them made. I remember one time here at my house. So here's the thing: if you prepare Kouzen food, you make food for Kouzen, and a lot of other spirits are actually like this, but especially Kouzen. You cannot taste the food while you're making it. A lot of people have this tendency to taste the food while they're making it. If you taste the food while it's being cooked, Kouzen will no longer be interested in what you're trying to feed him. He doesn't want it anymore. It's considered spoiled. One time, my wife was preparing a big meal, something called Chaka for Kouzen, which takes a lot of hours of both preparation and cooking. And one of my daughters coming in from school smelt it and immediately went to go take a taste. That chaka ended up being fed to our family instead, and my wife had to start fresh with a fresh batch of everything, re-preparing a brand new chaka. The family ended up eating that chaka that my daughter had tasted. So this is part of the reason why in brujos houses it's really important that you don't just go around touching anything, you don't go around eating everything, you don't just don't assume. Don't assume. Because when you go to a brujo's house, they can have all types of puntos and things laid out, and you might not think it's nothing, and it may be something big. Okay? Hi, Kia. You're most welcome, Amanda. It might be something really big. I'll give you an example. At one time, we had a spirit at my house, that we had inserted into a piece of paper. It was really important that without, certain permissions, you didn't touch that paper. Otherwise, you'd end up in a mess with that spirit. So this is why it's important when you go to someone's house, you know, part of like having common home training and house training is really beneficial once you understand the worlds of brujeria. Why? Because it serves almost as a protection, right? If you have common home training, you don't touch nothing that's not yours. You don't go into people's house a mess. You don't touch other people's stuff. You keep your hands to your own stuff. You make sure that you don't disrespect the house. You don't dirty up the house when you go and take a visit. You respect people's house. If you destroy something, you make sure you fix it or replace it. All of these things that people think of like, oh, what the hell? No, it doesn't matter. Actually, it's a really good training to make sure that you don't end up messing yourself up if you ended up at a spiritual house or a brujo's house. Because I always say, like, and some of the spirits and some of even my godparents said, head has said, like, me, Papa Hector, is a lot more forgiving than a lot of the misterios. So the brujo himself may be forgiving, but the misterio or the loa maybe not so much. This is why it's important to like keep your hands to yourself when it comes to other people's stuff. And Kouzen is a loa that does not like his stuff just randomly touched. Something that people don't know, and there's a lot of American Hungan and Mambo that don't know this because they haven't been taught or properly trained, is that if you do have a bag for Kouzen, you need to ask permission to go in that bag, even to clean that bag out. And I don't really like to even touch or go through his bag or clean it out. I really don't like to mess with it at all. You need permission. And you have to ask for that permission usually 3 days in advance. Because it could take him up to 3 or 4 days to get back to you as far as whether he's going to let you go in the bag. When you go in the bag, just because it looks like trash to you does not mean it's trash to Kouzen. Okay? So you can't just go around throwing things away. It's not yours. Once you've given something over to a loa, it's not yours to be handling and touching and doing whatever you want with it. Kouzen keeps money in his bag. Sometimes people need to borrow money. And usually this money Kouzen's money has a really high interest rate. I usually recommend people to borrow from somewhere else or someone else rather than Kouzen because his interest rate is very, very high. And if you're someone who has Kouzen's bag, there's two ways that money get lent out. One is off your back. And what I mean by that is someone comes, asks to borrow money, you ask to borrow money from Kouzen on their behalf, but Kouzen going to be looking at you if the money doesn't get paid back. The other way is to have that person asking to borrow the money, in which case if the money doesn't show up back, that's on that person rather than on you. Again, there's a proper procedure to do this. Being the way Kouzen is, as connected as he is with the plants, with the herbs, with everything that grows, naturally Kouzen is a big herbalist. He knows all about herbs and the magic of herbs. And, there's a lot of secrets when it comes to Vodou about the herbs. I'm going to give you an example. There's a certain leaf that if you know the secrets of how to use that leaf, okay? If someone comes to you with a problem or a situation, you unlock that leaf with those secrets. You hold it in your hand. And you start talking to the person. If the problem the person has is fixable, there's certain signs that are going to show up right away. If the person's problems are not fixable, meaning you should not take on the case, you should not do the work because it's not going to work, and instead the person is going to become problematic, again, there's certain very specific signs that are going to show up. These are some of the secrets that come with, having an initiator and having an initiator who's going to teach you these secrets and teach you properly. A lot of people, even people who do have the secrets, don't necessarily like to share them, especially because these days there's a lot of people who are way too sherry and blabbermouth. These days there's a lot of people who don't know how to keep a secret. And in our tradition, it says there's a song that says, if you don't want trouble in your life, you need to know how to keep a secret. If you want to keep friends in your life, you have to know how to keep a secret. If you want to keep good relationship, you need to know how to keep a secret. Okay? And that relationship not only refers to relationships with people, but also refers to relationships with the Loi. The, the Vodou tradition, the 21 divisions, is not some free for all, share everything, all share type of tradition. That's just not the way things are. These are warrior traditions. So it's something that for people not growing up in the culture, or especially coming from a very sherry culture, like New Age culture, at times can be difficult for them to understand and abide by. And so that's why these secrets are closely guarded by those of us that have those secrets. And many of those secrets are only shared with initiates and godchildren once the misterios or the loi say yes, that person is ready to receive that secret. They have achieved the level of maturity or responsibility for that secret to be shared. So, those things. And the Loi Kouzen is one of these Loi who's actually quite secretive. It's not uncommon that Kouzen will have a secret place in a temple or in an altar or somewhere where he will hide some of his items, he will hide his things, he will hide his money, and this is other places outside of the Jaku, outside of the straw bag, in which he will go ahead and hide what belongs to him so that no one can go ahead and take it. In a way, okay, when someone has Kouzen and it's out of balance, you will see this manifest with them as that person being very stingy, greedy, and selfish. Don't think that just because a person is stingy, greedy, selfish, or a hoarder, that's another property, or a hoarder, that automatically they have Kouzen. There's other reasons for this. However, if a person has Kouzen, these can be signs of Kouzen being out of balance, where he becomes very stingy, greedy, selfish, and a hoarder. Whereas when he is balanced, he can become very generous to a fault at times, and he can be quite the opposite. He can be very generous, right? And he really does look out for people. Kouzen is one of the loi. Kouzen is one of the loi that when I lived in Haiti, I think Kouzen was one of the loi I would see randomly pop up oftentimes. And in Haiti, where I lived, it was quite a small community. So it wasn't uncommon for Kouzen to suddenly mount someone down the street, and then suddenly we see Kouzen walking down the road, and maybe he's coming to share a message with someone in the Laku, or he's coming to give messages to other people, give luck, and give blessings. When Kouzen is generous, he can be really generous, where he's giving a lot of messages, luck, and blessings to everyone. So, those are some basics on Kouzen. Outside of that, I wanted to discuss a little bit about Aplasa since I had some people asking me about what is an Aplasa, so on and so forth. So an Aplasa is the caretaker of the altar, the caretaker of the loa when they're in the possession of the brujo, who is the owner of that altar. So when a brujo gets possessed, it's the Aplasa who's taking care of the loa and the brujo and everything that the loa needs. And Aplasa fulfills many, many roles. And not everyone works with an Aplasa. An Aplasa does not necessarily need to be an initiate, although it's way more helpful to the brujo when the Aplasa is an initiate. To be in a plaza is really an opportunity for someone to learn hands on. And it's a big opportunity, which also requires lots of trust because the Aplasa often takes care of a lot of the things in the altar and make sure to keep the lamps lit. They make sure to keep the altars clean and clear. They make sure to keep things in order. But aside from that, an Aplasa also does tons of learning. Here she gets to be with the Loa all the time when the Brujo comes and they get to learn about that. They get to learn about the Loa that Brujo encaja, like that Brujo gets possessed by frequently. Also, an Aplasa gets to learn a lot as far as rituals, recipes, brujeria, healings, treatments, so on and so forth. Back in my time, which is like not that long ago, right? Because I'm so young. But, right, when someone would become an initiate, if they were blessed, they would be blessed with the opportunity to be in a plaza. Where in my aunt's case, she usually had two or three aplazas, which were people that would switch out and work with her, I guess, depending upon their schedule, her schedule, etc. I remember people would do all kinds of things in order to come to be able to aplaza. And one of the things that the aplaza did back in the day is the aplaza used to also take care of kids, cook, clean the house, clean the altar, do a lot of these other things to allow the brujo to have the time to really dedicate to the work. So the Aplasa had many, many functions, and the Aplasa would take care of a great deal of things. In many places, they would say the Aplasa is just as important as the Brujo because the Aplasa is one who's constantly taking care of the altar, who's also constantly interacting with the Misterios. Not everybody works with an Aplasa because, unfortunately, trust these days is hard. And there's been many times where brujos have been betrayed by their aplazas, and so some brujos choose not to work with an aplaza or not to work with a regular aplaza. Back in the day, okay, I understand things are done differently now, but if a person was initiated and that person received their bautizo, they became a hungan or mambo. People have been asking me this, so I wanted to just answer it here in this session. It usually took 3, 5, or even 7 years before they would initiate someone else. Throughout that time, they may have served as an aplaza and then themselves have been training. Now, if someone having received that ceremony had already been trained quite a bit, had already learned quite a lot, they might end up on the shorter end of that timeline. Good afternoon, Michelle. They might end up on a shorter end of that timeline. However, especially if someone that was new, it was very common 5, 7 years of training, and being an Aplasa before someone would go ahead and initiate someone else, and most definitely before someone would go ahead and baptize someone else. I don't think. Mm, I don't think that I baptized someone else for like 12 years. Now, I'm not saying everybody's different, but that was very common. It was common that someone would not baptize anyone else for at least 5 to 7. Now, to give someone else a first level initiation, that's different. To give them a refresco, to give them a first level initiation, to do a lavetet, to do a simple, that might come along a lot quicker from that person themselves being baptized or being initiated as a Juan or Mambo. It takes, no matter the initiation, and so I want to address this here. I might do something on TikTok about it. No matter what the initiation is, most initiations take about a year to settle, fully settle. A lot of initiations settle a great deal within the first few months, but most initiations take about a year, sometimes longer, to fully settle. So this is really important to understand because a lot of changes are going to go on for you after initiation for about a year, sometimes longer. And everything these days, we're kind of like moving at such a quick pace. With the spirit world, it doesn't really worry about how we move in our society today. So, the reason I'm saying this is because I've had a bunch of people contacting me and asking me about like how long should someone take between initiations. They're either at a spiritual temple or a house that's really rushing them through, trying to give them a bunch of initiations back to back. And when that happens, you're going to end up in a hot damn mess. Trust me. I haven't seen it. Mm, yeah. I haven't seen where someone did that and did not end up in a big old mess, a hot mess, even if it's in the same tradition. So even if it's like you receive one Santeria initiation, now you're about to receive another, there should be at least almost a year period, especially if that was a major initiation, before you're getting the next initiation. Anyone who's giving you a bunch of initiations, especially if those initiations are disconnected, meaning you're getting a Santeria initiation, you're being initiated as in Vodou or 21 divisions, especially in those cases, there should be at least a year in order for one initiation to settle before another initiation is being tossed on top. Otherwise, you are going to end up in a hot mess. Sometimes this happens because a person is hopping from place to place looking for help, looking for results, for the change, and they don't even realize that this should be about a year and they don't realize what's going on. They weren't taught, or maybe they didn't even ask, they didn't stay in the place long enough. Some BS happened where they left early or whatever the case may be, which is why I'm addressing it, because many people that find themselves in that situation are contacting me with that situation where they left some place to go somewhere else. Now the next place initiates them, then they go there, they're not there, they're there but a few months before they leave somewhere else. This is going to create a lot of problems and a lot of issues for you that you do not need to deal with, and it's going to take a lot of time, money, effort, and energy to resolve. I know that when people watch this, amongst other brujos and other people doing initiations, they're not going to like that I'm telling you guys this. I promise you. Because there's a lot of people out there that make a lot of money basically just initiating people. Okay? So a lot of them are not going to like me telling you this, but it's a fact. And it's messed up that, especially if you didn't grow up in the culture, you don't know any better, whatever, that people are taking advantage by doing things improperly this way. And they get upset when someone like myself comes here to tell you that's not right. Right? And so I know a lot of people are going to be upset about me putting this out there, but it is what it is, and I don't really care. Yeah. Took a long time to get Mambo Sandy here fixed. And of course, sometimes you're going to want to give up. So, a lot of people, they get themselves caught up in a mess because a lot of people go and get themselves initiated with someone who doesn't have enough time being an initiate themselves. Hey, Star, you need time. Time to allow your initiation to settle before you're throwing other people on top of your back. And it doesn't mean that your life needs to be perfect before you can initiate others. But there are certain things that you should have worked through because if you're going to be someone else's guide, there's a lot that you're going to have to learn to deal with and not take personal and dropping of the ego in order for you to be effective and really help them. There's nothing wrong with that. If you think about it, most people to go get a degree go through a bachelor's program, which most people that I know who went through a bachelor's program actually took them 5 to 6 years to get because there was all these prerequisites that took a year or two to finish before they went and got their 4 year degree. And sometimes that could take between 4 to 6 years. And that's something that, to tell you the truth, physical world is a lot easier to do, a lot easier to learn, right? So there's nothing wrong with if you're on the spiritual path and you're spiritually helping others for it to take time for you to get from one space to another. But back in the day, okay, like no one that I knew growing up would go get initiated with someone who had anything less than 5 years as a Papa Boko, a Mambo Mambo, a Mambosa, a Hungan, a Mambo, so on and so forth. Yeah. So I'm going to read this in English for those of you who don't understand Spanish. Lihiash shares yesterday in my godfather's altar, they went to go verify a person to see if he had the misterios, and a brujo took 350,000 pesos, I believe, which is currency in DR, which is a lot of money. Okay, yeah, okay, and now that person is crazy. Okay, they paid 350,000 peso, which is a lot of money. Okay, a lot of money. We're talking about, I think, 70,000. Is it 70? I don't know. It's a lot of money. No, it's like seven. I think like $7 or $9,000. Okay, in U.S. money. Absolutely. Some Erica says here, it took me years to get my first initiation. I wasn't in a rush because I knew I wasn't ready for the responsibility that comes with it. Yeah, there's no need to rush. Like I said, a lot of other brujos are not going to like me telling you this, but if any brujo is rushing you to initiate and rush, 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 you might want to rush your butt right out of there. A lot of people are not going to like me telling you this because that's where they make a lot of money and they charge people lots of money. Okay? Another thing is, if you don't have misterios that have that type of connection with you, oftentimes there's not need for any major initiation. There's certain lower level initiations that can be done to help you improve your life, so on and so forth. But if you don't have misterios to come work with you like that, there's no reason where you should be going through major initiations. Yeah, yeah. Not everyone is meant to make other priests or brujos. That's another thing. Just because someone is a brujo doesn't mean they're made to be a godparent, uh, a mama, a papa, a padrino, a madrina, just because they're a brujo. Being a brujo is one set of skills, being a godparent is another set of skills. And being a brujo does not automatically make you a good mama, papa, madrino, padrino. Okay? Does not automatically make you for that. You might just be good at spiritual work. So these are something, yeah, these are some things that you might want to be aware of, is the best way to say it. Be aware of. There's certain steps that have to occur even after initiation, right? And when you're a priest or a priestess, there are certain compromisos or obligations that you have every year to your spirits that you have to fulfill. Every brujo, every bruja, especially those who are workers and initiates, has that obligation. There's certain ceremonies that need to be done yearly. Everyone has them. Most people here in the U.S. that I've seen who've been initiated as hungans and mambos. Being a hungan or a mambo is one thing. Being a brujo is another. Being a godparent is another. Now, in 21 divisions, you wouldn't be made a papa boko or a mama mambo if you weren't meant to work. It's different within Sanse and Haitian Vodou. But if you weren't meant to do work for people, you would not have been initiated at that level. At Sanse and Haitian Vodou, you can become a priest without necessarily the call to work, depending on the type of priest. Okay? You wouldn't go and get the highest level of the priesthood unless you were called to work. So, in 21 divisions, it's different. If you weren't called to work, you wouldn't be going to get a baptism. Yeah, I agree. I agree with G here. That, you know, a lot of things really matter and make a difference. And a lot of people go through it. And there's a lot to balance out, and that there's a lot of things about these traditions that people don't really know. All the time, I'm seeing here like people who have been initiated as hungans or mambos, or who have been baptized, and they do not know what their yearly responsibilities are. What the responsibility, okay? A papaboko is, I don't feel a papaboko is the maximum level in La Brujeria. I do feel like, yes, we can see it that way to a certain degree. But there are brujos and brujas out here that are not mama mambos or papaboko. Okay? But in the 21 divisions, yeah, it's pretty up there to be in. But brujeria is another thing. So, we often use the terms interchangeably, but there's brujos that are not papaboko or mama mambos, not hungans and mambos because they haven't been initiated. But there's a lot of these things that don't get discussed, and a lot of people who are Papa Boko, Mama Mambo, Hunga, Mambo, they don't even know what their yearly obligations are, monthly obligations, what their spiritual obligations are, because they were just told, come get this initiation, everything's going to work out for you, you're going to do spiritual work for other people, blah, blah, blah. And then later on, we see them suffering the consequences, and it comes down to getting those obligations taken care of. And then we teach them, and then they know, and then they're like, oh my God, I didn't know how to take care of that. I didn't know this is why this was happening. I didn't know this is why that was happening. There's there's a lot of reasons. They're like, oh my God, I didn't know. So we've had other Hungans, Mambos, initiates from other houses leave houses and end up joining our house. And then once we take care of those first few things start to move. Their lois start to move. Things start to improve. Their lois start to come back. They start having dreams again. They start having misterio. Things start heating up for them. They start making easier passes through life. And then they're like, I didn't know that that's what I had to do. And that's because a lot of times people don't discuss these points. And a lot of times a person is never taught. Ha ha. You would have stayed Hunsi forever. All right, so that's what I have here for you guys today. Many blessings to everyone. Keep the faith as always. Thank you for sharing your time with me. Like I said, the lives are switching every week because we have rituals and things we've been doing with people. And so the schedule's been kind of very fluid, moving around, moving around. So generally, it's going to be on Monday. It's going to be on Tuesday, sometime in the afternoon. I will try to announce them, but sometimes the schedule is so wobbly, it's hard to really give you guys that much of a heads up. You're most welcome to everyone. Thank you for being here with me. And as always, keep the faith until next time.